Right now, everything feels so heavy. Politically, socially, economically, environmentally. I know because I feel it too. There are ICE raids happening across the country. There are families being pulled apart. Kids who don't get home from school or get home and find that one of their family members is missing. In the United States, there is a steady churn of political violence happening. There's a normalization of cruelty as policy. There are so many people who look like me and you whose lives are seen as expendable. There are wars unfolding globally. Many of you come from lands and places and countries that are being torn apart or ravaged right now. There is climate grief. There is economic precarity. There are so many things that we're carrying, not to mention all of the personal stuff that's happening in our day to day lives and relationships. Where I see most people get stuck is in the space between wanting to do something and taking action, because for so many of you, you feel like no matter what you do, it's never going to be enough. So let's break down the school of thought. I'm a practicing therapist and a community builder, and everyone I work with or talk to is struggling with something. And when the world feels too heavy, we often get paralyzed by inaction. But this is where I want to remind you that power is cumulative. It's relational. You watching this, you do have influence and you do have power. Every small action builds into something greater. But before we can talk about what you can do, I want to encourage you to be present with your experience. Why? Because it's really important that you understand what's happening inside of yourself before you jump into action. When the world feels heavy or unjust or overwhelming, your nervous system is responding in a way that it knows how. And it's really important that you cue into that, because that's going to help you understand yourself and also process how you respond to chaos and overwhelm. Then and only then will you be able to ground yourself to then take action. Many of you watching this, me included, were never taught how to recognize what's happening inside of us when we feel stressed out. Instead, you are often just taught to override it, ignore it, deny it, pretend it doesn't exist. Maybe that's because you live in a marginalized body that constantly had to scan for safety. Or maybe you grew up in a family where you learned to outsource control and power because your voice and needs didn't matter. Or maybe you simply just inherited survival skills from your elders who learned that in order to survive, you needed to keep the peace and not rock the boat. So you don't even know how to take action because it feels so terrifying to do anything. It feels like it goes against your conditioned scripts of just keeping the peace. So instead of being able to do something, you shut down completely. You freeze. And that's okay. These are all ways that your nervous system has inherited or learned or been conditioned to understand how to be safe. And I want to help you cue into that, because this is going to be really important if you want to be a part of collective liberation, if you want to be a part of the solution, if you want to take action, any action that feels good to you. So, I want you to gently check in about three things. First, notice where you feel numb or overstimulated. Numbness is usually a form of protection. It's usually your nervous system's way of saying, hey, this is too much for me to process all at once. Often, when you're overstimulated, you're flooded with emotions and information. So, it's easier and feels safer to shut down because your nervous system doesn't know what to focus in on. If this happens, you want to slow down. Take a few breaths. Put your hand on your chest. Rub your feet on the ground. You want to remind yourself that in this moment, you are safe. This is different from distracting from reality, but rather it's allowing you to stay calm in the present moment that you are existing in. The second thing I want to encourage you to do is to notice when your mind jumps to certainty or despair. Any kind of trauma, personal or collective, can cause our brain to rush to an all or nothing mindset. We start to then think in these extremes. Nothing will change at all. Nothing I do will be enough. Everything is doomed. Certainty, even if that certainty is hopelessness, feels a lot safer than uncertainty. Is there something I can do? Is there something we can do together collectively? Is there a conversation I could possibly have? Those feel scarier and more uncomfortable than the certainty of hopelessness. You want to remind yourself that grief and joy can be held simultaneously. Good and bad can exist at the same time. And you can acknowledge what you can't control and what you don't have power over, while also focusing on what you can control and what you can do. And the last thing I want to encourage you to do is to notice when you outsource responsibility to someone with more power. This is a deeply human response. It is really difficult to live in a world and in a country where the most powerful people treat people who look like me and you in deeply inhumane ways. That can really feed our hopelessness and powerlessness. What are we supposed to do as little people up against the people who have more power than us? I understand that feeling. When systems feel bigger than us, we instinctively look to the people who have more power to do something, to say something, to stand up for us. And if you grew up in a family where maybe there was a hierarchy, this is only compounding this feeling and this instinct that you have. This also reinforces this belief that your power lives outside of your body. That is not true. Fundamentally, you have power as a person, as an individual, as someone who has their own sphere of influence, who lives within a family system, who has a community, who has neighbors. I want to remind you over and over again, you are not powerless. What I always tell my clients and people I talk to do is to focus in on those specific fears and passions. Often, every one of us has a specific fear that keeps recurring when it comes to the anxieties and the overwhelm and the chaos we're experiencing. How can you lean into that fear and think, what is one thing I can do to help make this better? When you break down all of these bigger existential fears that you're experiencing into one thing, it feels more manageable and it feels easier for you to take one single action. So, it's really important for you to tune into what's happening when you feel overwhelmed. And now that we've talked about that and I've helped you understand some of the dynamics that might be at play, I want to help you get clear on what it is that you can do to take action right this minute. I'm going to give you 5 tips, but I just want to remind you, you just have to start with one thing. Pick one thing that feels doable and aligned with your values, something that you're interested in, something that you have resources to offer. And I want to be clear here. I work with people who have different levels of risk tolerance. I know not everyone is going to be willing to be out on the streets or use their platforms or speak up at work. I know that people have different things that they're risking and different things that they're willing to risk. And that's okay. That doesn't mean that you can't do anything. Here are 5 examples of things that you can do right now after this video. And if you're interested, I wrote an entire newsletter of 35 things that you can do. So you can go read that and hopefully it will inspire you to take some action. First, stay informed with intention and talk about it. Don't doom scroll. If you are going to scroll on Instagram or social media, make sure it's with intention. Make sure you're checking in with yourself and saying, okay, I'm spending the next 10 minutes tuning into what is happening around the world. This means that I might see a video that might be really hard to watch. I might read some news that might be really hard to digest, but I am now opting in and consenting to doing this at this time, rather than doom scrolling before bed or just picking up your phone and scrolling when you walk to the bathroom or when you are between meetings. You want to be very mindful of when you are consuming this information. At the same time, you want to learn and educate yourself about how all of these global issues are connected to each other. None of these things are happening in isolation. Being informed and being informed with intention then allows you to have these harder conversations with your family, whether it's educating your kids or talking to your elders who have different opinions and views. You want to be able to be mindful, intentional, but then also prepared with information to have and talk about these things. 2, amplify voices and stories from people on the ground. Like I said, not everyone is going to have the same risk tolerance to be on the ground doing this work, but how can you use your sphere of influence, whether it's your social media pages or at work or in your families or in that WhatsApp group that you're a part of, to share these stories of people who are on the ground risking a lot to be doing this work for collective liberation. And make sure you're not just sharing outrage, right? This angers me. I'm struggling. This feels really hard. You also want to share the specific stories. You want to share local news and local journalists' information. You want to share resources. You want to share ways that people are coming together, and you want to share hope. 3, take action. If you aren't willing to be on the streets and protest, then find other ways to take an action. Call your representatives or offer resources to those who are on the streets, whether it's donating money to a mutual aid group or translating resources for maybe your local immigrant community. If you have a specific skill set, you can also offer your expertise pro bono for people who might need it in your area. And you can even attend a one-time training. This can be a tech training, a bystander intervention training, a know your rights training, whatever it is, it can help you feel more prepared to help take action if you need to in the moment. 4, support immigrant-owned businesses and community-oriented businesses. Where you spend your money matters, and where you divest your money also matters. Don't forget that. And 5, offer specific help to someone in your network. This might look like being a listening ear for an immigrant family who lives next door, or offering to pick up groceries or offering childcare. Concrete support builds relational power. If you can't be the one to offer a direct expertise or resource, you can offer other resources to people who can. This is how we help each other build power and make change. Like I said, these are just 5 potential actions you can take. But while I'm talking about this, right, we talked about what happens to your nervous system, we talked about 5 potential actions you can take. I also want to remind you that there are actions you can take internally. That is a part of the work. This might look like tending to your nervous system, letting yourself grieve, noticing discomfort without rushing with a hot take, challenging that all or nothing mindset that comes up, naming what's happening out loud, and maybe correcting misinformation in a group chat or with your family, and noticing when and with whom you struggle to extend empathy. Do you find that it's easier to be sad and empathetic when someone looks a certain way or when they come from a certain country? This is all a part of doing the work to challenge our own internal biases and prejudices. Just remember that letting yourself feel deeply is not you being detached, it's you caring. We just want to make sure that that care doesn't turn into paralysis. So, I hope you can do one thing today. Then you can rest tomorrow. And then the next day, you can do one more thing. This is how your power accumulates. Let me know in the comments, what is one thing you're committed to doing today? It doesn't matter how small it feels, it's still important. Because as I want to remind you for the last time, you are not powerless. I hope this video was helpful, and I'll see you next time.